Welcome to the QueBIT PriceAlign demonstration. Today we'll be showing you how automation and optimization delivered through PriceAlign will help you improve your organization's margin and revenue. PriceAlign delivers speed, simplicity, and scale. Speed through predefined data models and pre-built AI and machine learning models that are implemented through our rapid implementation methodology. Simplicity through a streamlined user experience and the ability to surface prices in your existing order entry tools or through the PriceAlign user interface. With robust analytics and reporting, help you to drive your understanding of pricing and adjust accordingly. With scale, the ability for price modeling and management of any rules at any level, whether that's down to the customer, location, product level. Today we'll be illustrating PriceAlign's analytic process flow in the demonstration. So we'll be looking at the automated pre-processing steps around clustering and segmentation, lifecycle modeling, elasticity modeling, competitive indexing, setting goals and boundaries around your pricing, around margin and revenue and competitive pricing, running that price optimization, and then reviewing the results of that price optimization process with the ability to override prices and analysis. Let's go look at the demo. We've signed into the QueBIT PriceAlign web interface for end users and administrators. As you can see, there's a navigational pane down the left-hand side with this dashboard, some cluster analysis summary and details, and then going into scenarios. The first thing that we see is this analysis screen, and it's divided into 4 areas. As you can see, I can navigate and drill down into product categories. This could be locations, customers, and the charts are updated immediately. In the upper left, we can see a performance analysis that looks at current year and prior year performance on units, revenue, margin, and margin percent with a tabular format below so that you can see the raw numbers. In addition, as I hover, I can see the details of these. I can turn on and off any metrics within the dashboard, and I can also drill across different period roll-ups. So if I'd like to look at a trailing 12-month or a prior trailing year 3 months, however I'd like to slice and dice this data. In addition, on the right-hand side is a variance analysis that allows us to look at unit percent change, revenue percent change, margin percent change, and percent margin change. On the bottom right-hand side, we can look at cost and margin trending. So average cost, average rolling price, average margin across trailing 5 weeks, trailing half, quarters, and again, I can turn any of these on and off to compare across the different scenarios. In the bottom left, we can see a price volume mix waterfall chart. The ability to look at different reference periods. So if I wanted to look at last month's comparison to this current month's comparison, drill down by customer or look at all customers and see how it's performing. As you can see, last year's month compared to this year's month, we had $37 million in revenue. We didn't really have a price impact. The volume fell off, so we had a volume impact, and we really didn't have a mix impact, but our sales fell primarily based on volume. Maybe I'd look to drill down into a particular customer and see how they performed during that same period. It gives me the ability to determine where price, volume, and mix contribute to particular revenue from a reference period to a current period. Let's go look at the cluster analysis. Clustering and segmentation allows us to segment our customers by different variables. In this drop-down, we can see some of the standard variables that are delivered with the system. Population totals, unemployment rates. In this case, we're looking at current year order quantity, which we know is typically a very important way of clustering our customers. As we can see, cluster 9 is one of the largest contributors to current year order quantity. We can drill down in more detail to see exactly where these customers are located. As you can see, we're looking at cluster 9 and carried over from the analysis summary, and we can see that this is a location or regional specific type cluster. Let's go back and see if we can look at some additional analysis. So maybe what we'd like to do is analyze year-over-year unit growth and see where most of our unit growth is coming from. And it looks like cluster 6. So we'll select cluster 6 and we'll go to our cluster analysis details. And we can see cluster 6 is in the growth region in the Carolinas and in the mid-southeastern states. We can certainly drill down on location, look at the other variables for this particular cluster like population total, unemployment rates, any of those sort of things that may be contributing to this particular cluster. We'll get into more cluster details as we start analyzing price for particular clusters and locations. But let's go look at scenarios. I've come into the scenario area, and let's just add a new scenario. We can add as many scenarios as we'd like. In this case, we might set floor pricing that's going to be specific for a particular time frame. Maybe these are some sale prices or whatever we may do. Maybe it's Christmas season pricing, whatever that might be, and we'll create that new scenario. So we can have as many scenarios as you like. We can run a full run of the scenario, which generates all the pre-processing steps that I referred to in the intro, or we can just re-optimize based on setting some limits or price overrides, which we'll show in just a couple minutes. We can also edit this. We can duplicate it. So if we like what we're doing in this area and we want to start that as a base for a new scenario, we can set it as default, as you can see in my first scenario there. If we had tons of scenarios, we can archive those, and we can certainly come in and delete them. But let's go into the first scenario. As you can see, we were navigating top to bottom through the dashboards and cluster analysis. And as we get to the scenarios and come down to a detailed scenario, we start navigating from left to right. And think of this as an onion. We're peeling the onion for pricing, starting with categories, customers, locations, all the way down to the item level, which are all part of our pre-processing steps. And then we'll go, once we've run those processes and had the system rapidly recalculate and optimize prices, then we can start going into things like review, impact analysis, insights into elasticity by cluster and by location, and then down to the approval level for approving prices. But let's start in that pre-processing steps of categories, customers, locations, and items. In this case, we can see we're in the category area, and I can certainly click on Show Overrides Only, and so it'll show anywhere where I've overridden corporate defaults. We can also set objectives. So objectives could be we want to drive revenue, or we want to drive margin, or we want to drive unit sell-through for each of these product categories. This helps us set the optimization in the optimization model that runs. And we can also set boundaries at the category level, so a max % decrease in price or increase in price. And this flows down all the way through customers, locations, and items, and you can override at any particular level. We can also look at dollar increase or decrease, margin percentage increases, and then the competitive price indexing, minimum and maximum, determining how we would like to compare ourselves against our competitors' pricing. So once we've set some defaults, we can see that we can override at the category level, and we'll also see those defaults being populated as we peel the onion. So let's go down to the customer level. So in this case, we can see again that the default in these are populated, or if there's no default, then it comes with nulls. In other words, we're not setting any boundaries on these particular categories by customer. This helps drive the optimization model that will take these boundaries and include them in the pricing optimization process. By clicking on any column, we can sort on that column. In addition, we can filter. So I'd like to look at just customer number 100 and or customer 101 and filter on that. And so now we're only looking at customers 100 and 101. We can see that we have an override at this customer level. We could certainly go in and show overrides only, turn that off. We can clear the filters and refresh the screen at any time. But as you can see, the defaults are coming from the category level. Unless there's no default, then we'll show null. Let's continue setting our boundaries. We'll go down to the location level. Now we can see categories, locations, customers, and clusters. We could certainly filter on a location. Happen to know that this is a location we'd like to look at. Maybe we want to look at it just in these categories, and we may set overrides in any of these areas. Again, this helps drive the optimization model that stands underneath the PriceAlign user interface. Now we're down at the item level, and my filters are still showing, so I'm only looking at customer 100 and customer 101, and maybe I'd like to look at a location or just filter on a particular location. In this case, I'm just looking at location 10029. Maybe I want to clear that and look at all locations for just this particular customer. Now I can see I've gone from just those 290 items down to 4 million items. And I'd like to see where I may have set overrides across all these item levels. And so just by clicking on Show Overrides, I immediately can see where I'm setting overrides at the item level. In this case, I can see that I want no more than a 10% decrease for this item for this customer, and no more than a $10 increase in prices for this customer and this particular item for this location. Just as a check in where we are in the process, we've done some clustering and segmentation and reviewed how our customers are segmented. We've done some goal setting at the category level, and we've set boundaries at the customer, location, and item level. We've talked a little bit about competitive indexing and how we can also set boundaries within the competitive price index that we've developed. Now we'll go back and look at some additional overrides. We'll look at some life cycle modeling and elasticity modeling. Let's continue on with our review of the optimization. So the optimization has been run, and now we have the ability to review the system's recommended pricing changes. In this case, we're looking at all categories, but maybe we want to look at a particular category, and all clusters, but maybe we want to review a particular cluster. What the system is telling us, it's recommending price increases, some price decreases, and the overall effect of these price increases and decreases and even no changes in prices would affect margin, units, and revenue overall. In this case, we can see the forecasted revenue based on the price changes the system has optimized takes us from current revenue of $287 up to current revenue of $299 for this category and for this cluster. What does it do overall? It drives revenue from 2.1 to 2.4 based on the optimal prices. We can drill down into customer details. I can also select what columns I'd like to view. So item, customer, maybe I don't want to look at average price. So I can turn these on and off as needed. I can also see overridden prices. And in this case, I can see that what we know for this customer and this item, we always set an override price of 60. And for this item, it's 63. And so this allows you to set prices or override any of the prices that the system has optimized based on what you know about that customer and what you know about those items. I can also review very low-level details. And I can see the location, item, customer, current price, the system's suggested price variance from that current price to system price, and any overrides that we may set. And as you can see, that $60 override came from our customer levels, and we can see that that price has been defaulted, and I can certainly override at any of these detail levels as needed. Let's go look at the impact. The impact could be reviewed in units or revenue, and what this does is it gives us a very high-level overview of the pricing recommendations the system has generated. In this case, we're looking at revenue, and we can see that the revenue potential is 374,000. Total items are 19,258 items, and the dollar impact of the changes is around $19. This tells us that, based on the pricing recommendations, that our highest potential for revenue is in the jackets area, and the best value per price change are in the shirts area. So those areas that we may want to focus on. Let's go down and look at the insight. This is where we start looking at the life cycle models and the elasticity models that have been generated by the pricing optimization. What we can see is we're looking at an item for a location, and I can turn on and off any of these trend lines over the life cycle of the product. We can also see how that life cycle is moving over the life of this particular product. We can look at the average selling price and what that does to unit sales. So as average selling price came up, kind of hit a sweet spot, and then unit sales fell off after that. That could be due to seasonality. So let's go look at seasonality. In fact, it maybe does have something to do with seasonality, and that seasonality starts falling off after this optimal pricing here. We can also see the effect on margin. So margin rates are falling as might well be expected as our unit volume falls. Let's also look at revenue. Revenue, and let's take off some of these other ones, so maybe we take off so we can get a view. The revenue actually was very nice here on that price increase and the unit volume before it started falling off. Maybe there's something that we need to do here to help prevent this happening again as we're starting to trend up. We can also sort on any of these. So if I'd like to look at, actuals, the optimized forecasted price going forward, and this is at a cluster level. So you might ask, well, I want to look at that particular location. Very easy. I go to my location, and now I can see that we've only recently begun selling or introduced this product into this location. So we can see we've got some sales, but one here, one there. So very sparse sales for this location. So how do we set prices? We go back to our cluster performance, and we can analyze how this cluster is performing and apply those prices to that particular location so that we don't price ourselves out of the market or underprice ourselves and lose margin. So some excellent insight into the life cycle of this cluster and location. Let's go down and look at the detail. This really gives us a view of our elasticity model. We can see that elasticity was fairly low in that it's not a steep angle to the elasticity. You can also see the optimized suggested pricing going forward for not only the location but also the cluster. We can turn on and off any of these spots so we can see that for this location, the optimized location price, it's suggesting that price be 108.10, but since we have so very few sales, we're not forecasting anything in this area. As you can see, that quantity is forecasted at 0 based on the sparsity that we have in the data. But for this cluster, we can go look at the cluster price. So it's right here. We can see that we're based on this optimized price of 103 or 102.89, that we're forecasting 286 units based on this and based on the cluster performance. We can also see other things like the current price. In this case, the current price for the last period was 91.60 and we sold 308 units. And we can see that in the details over here. You can also see that every other cluster price that we priced and the number of volume across each of these periods gives us a very nice view of how elasticity is affecting this cluster, location, and item level sales. Let's go and look at approvals. Once we've done our analysis, we've reviewed the impact diagrams, we've reviewed the life cycle and elasticity models, we can then go in and approve these prices or approve the increases and decreased prices at a category level, at a location, and even down at an item level. So what we've seen in this demonstration is we started in a dashboard. We were able to drill down into the cluster analysis at a summary level, down to a detail level, determine where those clusters are and what factors are contributing to where customers are clustered and what cluster they're located. We developed a new scenario, reviewed a scenario that we had already developed and run and optimized, looked through items such as our category boundaries, customer boundaries, locations, and item boundaries. We reviewed the customer details and override pricing. We saw the impact of these pricing decisions at the category and cluster level. We were able to look at life cycle performance through an interactive graph and down to the detail elasticity models to determine optimal prices, and then we went through the approval process. So just a summary, as you've seen in the demonstration, QueBIT PriceAlign is all about pricing. Some of the benefits that we've discussed have been pricing confidence, the ability to incorporate demand drivers for more accurate pricing, AI and machine learning models that drive prices for sales and customer support, the transparency of drivers, the ability to review what those drivers are, what the boundaries are, override those boundaries and set boundaries at higher levels, in addition to review how customers are clustered and the variables that are attributed to that segmentation. You have fully automated pricing process that really drives down process times, with immediate feedback on pricing scenarios, with KPIs by customer, product, location. And the organizational impact is what we're finding is that increased revenue and margin, depending on the objectives that you set at category levels, driving consistency in pricing methodology and execution, and increased confidence in pricing guidance. Thank you very much for your time today.